Folks, for some, the condo situation is worse than we think. I'll get into that and then the latest home prices and insights for condos across the GTA for week ending March the 12th, 2025. A while back, we put in an offer on a condo representing our buyer client. Now, this condo was listed a little bit higher than some of the other condos in the building, so we put in an offer according to what made sense. What made sense to us, right? It wasn't accepted. It was turned down. The seller's agent said, no, we're not even responding. Well, that condo sat unsold. So about a month after that, we put in another offer. And thinking, okay, well, the seller's been out there for a month more now, is not sold yet. Surely the seller's got to be more reasonable now, right? Days on market works against the seller, not for the seller, not in favor of the seller. It works against the seller. So it's a month later. We put in another offer and the same thing. But this time the agent called me and says, Santo, I appreciate you trying again. You're not understanding the situation. The seller cannot afford to sell it at that price. And we get into more discussion. Here's the situation. Not only if the seller sold at the price we offered at, which is in and around what some of the other ones are selling for, the seller not only would be losing all their down payment on the condo, it would have gone lower than whatever their mortgage was. Like the seller would have had to come up with outside money in order to close. I'll give you a scenario. You buy a home for $1 million, a condo. You put 20% down. So the bank basically lends you your mortgage, $800,000. So $800,000 plus the $200,000 you put in as down payment, there's $1 million. That's your purchase price. You decide you want to sell. And we figure out market value, and market value is $900,000. So you're thinking, man, I put $200,000 in, I'm going to lose $100,000 of that. And you go on the market, you've somehow wrapped your head around you're going to lose $100,000. Well, what if we say the market value is probably going to sell for about $800,000? So now you've got your head around you're going to lose $200,000. Now, it's not an easy thing to do. How many of you listening here are okay just losing $200,000 out of your savings? That's a ton of money. It's not an easy decision to make. It's definitely not an easy thing to get your head around. But keeping the condo, you figure, has far worse consequences for you. So you're okay just, getting beat up on this and moving on. What if the condo is going to sell for $750,000? Your mortgage is $800,000. So not only are you losing all your equity or whatever you put in as down payment, your mortgage wants $800,000 back, but your condo sells for $750,000. So you got to come up with $50,000 from somewhere else to actually close. That's the scenario this condo was in, that I was saying that we put an offer once, then we put in an offer a second time a month later. My client, the buyer, even me, is thinking, why is this seller so unreasonable? They're already listed higher than everybody else. Why are they so unreasonable? What don't they understand about where prices are today? Well, in fact, the seller understands more than anybody where prices are today, but needs a hope and a prayer that someone's going to, for whatever reason, give them a little more. They actually can't afford to sell at where market prices are. So they stay on the market. Hopefully the market turns around. I'm not sure what they're thinking because, they're in the situation that they're in. And I'm saying this because not every condo seller that's listed maybe a little bit higher or is sitting on the market for a long time is just being unreasonable. They're stuck. They don't know what else to do. Now, this is not all condo sellers that are, priced a little bit higher maybe, but specifically relates to a lot of condo purchasers that bought around the peak, 20, 21, 22, 23 even, bought around the peak and are trying to sell now. They've closed and are trying to sell. They bought at inflated prices versus where prices are today. The market has shifted quite a bit, and some of them find themselves in situations where, man, they got to come up with outside money in order to close. They've accepted they're losing their whole down payment, but they got to come up with more. They just can't, and so they're stuck. These are real life situations in the market today. Not everybody, but there's quite a few. It's not an uncommon thing for the lawyer to hear, for the realtor to hear, for the mortgage company to hear. Like, this is very common today in the condo market. Get advice if you find yourself in this situation. Speak to the appropriate people. This is very serious and you need proper professional guidance. If you feel this video can help somebody, please pass it along. If you get value from what we're talking about, subscribe. If you want to speak with me about your real estate situation, selling, buying, it's really simple. Below this video in the description, there's a link to my calendar. Click on that. Or if you want, go directly to tsre.ca. That'll take you directly to my calendar. Pick a time and a date that suits you, and we'll talk about whatever's on your mind. Now, let's get into the condo numbers. Folks, at the end of this video, there'll be a link on the screen. Check it out. It's a large one-bedroom plus den condo in South Etobicoke with an awesome view of the lake. We're going to get started here. We're going to be focused on condo apartments only in this show. We're going to break down prices and trends and so forth for Toronto, York region, Peel region. Here's just a quick summary of average sold prices for 3 months, comparing the three. Usually, this is the hierarchy. Toronto has the average sold price, the highest, then York region, then Peel region. We're going to start off with the city of Toronto. For week ending March the 12th, 154 condos were sold. 17 of those were at $1 million or more. Now, I put a circle around all this. I kind of like to say we're trending up or we're trending down. I want to point this out to you. Well, I don't think I'm able to spot a trend here other than it's kind of flat. It's up and down each week a little bit. I don't see a big change in sales over the span of 2 months or so. Average sold price is sitting at $711,000, which is on the higher side of where we've seen average sold price going all the way back to September last year. 700, anything over 700,000 is on the higher side. So take that the way you will, but average sold price is usually much lower than that. Compared to last year, 711,000 is 2% lower than where it was this time a year ago. The median price of 635 is 4% lower year over year. The dotted line, that's a 4-week moving average. It makes it easier many times to spot a trend when you kind of 4-week moving average. It kind of looks like prices overall for median and average price, they're kind of flat. They haven't really veered too far off of their average pricing. Now, sales. Here's where things get interesting. If we look at January 1st to March 12th, year to date this year versus the same period a year ago, sales are down 22%. So fewer sales, much fewer sales, 22% fewer sales this year versus a year ago. However, listings are up 19% for the same period year to date this year versus last year. And if we look at active listings, the amount of condos sitting for sale, this is just for the city of Toronto, it's 4,980. That's actually up 50% from the amount of active condo listings we had this time a year ago, this time in 2024. Active listings is up 50%. Months of inventory sitting high at 7.5 months of inventory, pretty much a buyer's market. That's the whole city sitting at 7.5. Different parts of the city, they're going to have their own numbers related to those areas. And I've broken it down into 9 sections. If you're active on the market, if you're selling, if you're buying, your building, your neighborhood is really more important what's happening there than any other part of the city. So if you're active, even if it's all of Etobicoke, you could be north versus south. You really got to look at your specifics and get somebody to determine and let you know what the true real numbers are for your specific situation. However, if we can look at things this way, Scarborough sitting at 5.8 months of inventory, where the whole city averages out to 7.5. East York, Riverdale Beaches, 4.6 months of inventory. Midtown, York Mills, Rosedale, average selling price just under $1 million. We're at 6.4 months of inventory. Uptown, 5.4 months of inventory. Downtown, it's the other way, 10.7 months of inventory. High Park, 7.7, and so forth. You can check out the rest of them depending on what area interests you. Here's York Region condos. 43 condos were sold. That's the most amount of condos this year in 1 week. It beats the previous week of 42 by 1. 4 condos sold at $1 million or more, which helps to explain why average sold price jumped up to $693,000. But before that, it was trending down. $693 is 4% higher than where we were this time a year ago. The weeks leading up to this week, average price is much lower than where we were this time a year ago. Median price of $652 is 5% higher year over year. Prices overall have been trending down. I'm looking at the 4-week moving average now, the dotted line. This 1 week, we might see some changes over the next just because it's jumped up. But overall, prices have been trending down. 43 were sold, 19% sold at list price or more. Active listings, they're climbing, they're trending up. 901 available condos for sale. I'm just going to go back one window. 43 sold, but there's 901 available for sale. And that number, 901, which is what we call active listings, that number is up 88% from where the active listing number was a year ago. Think about that, 88%, close to double. Months of inventory sitting at 4.8 months of inventory. It's at the top end of a balanced market. Here's Peel Region condos. 25 were sold. One of those was at $1 million or more. 25, that's not far off from where we've been over the last few weeks. Average price looks like they're trending down from my vantage point here. We're now at $517,000 is the average sold price. Compared to last year, 517 is 16% lower year over year. The median price of 523 is 13% lower, but there's ups and downs, peaks and valleys. The dotted line, the 4-week moving average, kind of looks like maybe prices are a bit flat, but they sure feel like they're trending down, don't they? 25 were sold, 32% sold at list price or more. Active listings, 876. So active listings is climbing, and active listings are up 75% from where we were this time a year ago. Big change. Listings, far more listings this year than last year. Months of inventory sitting at 8.1 months of inventory, pretty much a buyer's market. Here's a quick summary. In most cases, you're going to experience a buyer's market. Maybe some buildings, some neighborhoods could be more of a balanced market, but in most cases, you're going to experience a buyer's market. That does not mean some condos won't sell with multiple offers. I mean, if they're priced aggressively enough, buyers will jump in. So you can have some competition out there. Now, check out, link will be on the screen, awesome 1-bedroom plus den condo with a view of Lake Ontario. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.